Okay, in today's class, in C++, I will explain constructor with parameters. Okay, in the previous class, I have explained what is constructor. Constructor is a special method, okay, which will be called automatically whenever object of a class is created. These all classes are free classes. They will be conducted under my Lakshminarayan Krishna Foundation, thrice of a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sharply at 8 p.m. So you can attend my classes. Okay, whomever they are living in rural areas, away of network centers, and they are not afford to pay expensive classes. Okay, under my Lakshmi Narayan Krishna Foundation, you can attend my classes. Huh? There is no any problem. So constructor with parameters. So what is the use of constructor with parameters? So constructors will be passed parameters. Okay. Parameters are nothing but they are the variables. Okay. Generally, we will pass parameters in functions. Okay. Same, in the same way, in constructors can also be passed with the parameter, means variables. Okay. Don't feel that parameters are what? Parameters are what? Variables. They will hold parameters means variables and they will be assigned with somewhat values. Okay. So the constructors will be passed with parameters, so which can be useful for setting initial values for attributes. So attributes and parameters all are variables. Okay. Parameters, attributes, all are same. But attributes will be declared inside of a class. Okay. And parameters will be passed to either the function or method or constructor, special method. And whenever that method is being called, okay, whenever object is created, that moment we need to pass the values as arguments. That is very important. Huh? So see what happened here. See, one class is created, class with class keyword, class name car. So the class created, okay, with the class keyword in C++. This is the access specifier, public colon. Means all the attributes of this car class and its methods, its all data members, they will be accessed, can be accessed outside of the class. Public means. So these are attributes. Three attributes created. Attributes are what? Brand is a variable, model is a variable, year is a variable. Means attributes means variables. Huh? If they defined inside of the class, I told you that inside of the class here. Okay. So they're called attributes. Whenever means brand, model, year. Here brand is an attribute means a variable. A string variable, model is a variable, string variable, year is a variable, integer. Means year holds integer value. 2025 is an integer value. So year is a variable. This is it holds integer type of data. Model is a variable, it holds integer type of data. Brand is a variable, it holds string type of data. Model is a variable, it holds string type of data. So these, whatever the variables declared inside of the class, they are called attributes. Don't confuse yours. The variables, attributes, same. So whenever, this is what, whenever constructor is created, always the constructor name equal to class name. This is class name. So constructor with the parenthesis, brackets. Okay. Bracket. Inside of the brackets, whatever the parameters we have passed here, they are called, whatever the variables we have passed here, they are called parameters. Okay. Constructor with the parameters. These are variables different variables. They are called attributes declared inside of class, and inside of the constructor, whatever the variables, x is a variable, but it is a string variable. Y is a variable, it is a string variable. Z is a variable, it is integer variable. But these all are different variables called different parameters um, passed to a constructor. But as per the string, one string variable, but different name. Okay, x. Here x, but it is a string. It is a y, but it is a for this string model attribute, one more parameter passed. So that what happened? Constructor will set up the initial values. Constructor set the constructor, what it does when we call the constructor. So when we call the constructor, so by creating an object of the class, whenever we create an object of a class, so constructor will be called. That moment what we pass parameters to the constructor. We have passed the parameters. These are the parameters to the constructor. So their parameters are what? They are the variables. So what they do, constructor, whenever we pass parameters to the constructor, so which will set the values of the corresponding attributes. So attributes values will be set up corresponding values of the corresponding attributes. Which are the corresponding here? Try to understand. This is the for this attribute, the corresponding parameter is this. This is the parameter, X parameter. That is what, because this string attribute, brand is a string attribute. For this is the string parameter corresponding. For this model attribute, it is a string attribute. This Y is a parameter. So these values of these attributes will be set up by these parameters. Whenever we pass the values as arguments while we are calling the object. Whenever object is created, so for that parameters, we will pass the values. BMW is what? It is brand, BMW equal to X. So we need to equalize. We need to equalize inside of the constructor. That is very important. So whenever we equalize the attributes with the parameters, okay, we need to pass the parameters inside of the parameters means X, Y, Z are parameters means variables. Inside we need to pass them inside of the inside of the inside of the constructor. Constructor is a special method. It has brackets, parentheses. Inside of this, we need to pass the parameters and equalize. Means for the brand, corresponding parameter is what? X. For model attribute, corresponding parameter is Y. Because here model is a string attribute, so we need to pass a string parameter. For the string model is a string attribute. You never pass a integer parameter. For the string model attribute, you need to pass a parameter as a string. That is very important. For this here, integer attribute, we have passed integer parameter and equalize. Brand is equal to X. For this attribute, X. For this model attribute, Y is the parameter. So, for this year attribute, integer attribute, that is good, integer Z parameter. So then after what, whenever we create objects, so objects will be created inside of the main function. So that moment, whenever we are creating the objects for this class, car class, car object one, car object two, it is depend upon you. It depend upon you. You want to create how many objects? It is up to your wish. So that moment, whatever the values we pass inside of the inside of the objects. Okay, car object one. So inside of the brackets, we need to pass the values. These are called arguments. These are called arguments. This is the value, argument value for what? This brand. Now brand is equal to what? So these values to pass to parameters. These values pass it to parameters, and parameters is equal to attributes. So your attributes values will be set up. Same thing here, which will set the value of the corresponding attributes to the same. When we call the when we call the constructor by creating an object of the class, whenever we create an object, so that constructor special method will be called automatically. So whatever the parameters we have passed to the constructor, so these parameters X, Y, Z, they will set the values of the attributes of the class. Okay, they will set up the attributes of the class. So this is the class. Then we can take a print of that. Yes, see out car object one. That is what that brand insertion operator. This is what empty space. Okay, next one more attribute we can call, so that this x5 value will be passed, and insertion operator empty. Okay, the empty string. Next, this is what here. So cout will be used to display so you will get the printout. Okay, for second object, same. For the second object arguments, these values will be passed to the class attributes. Attributes are what? Brand. But that moment you need to call object2 and return 0. Now let us do this code one by one. This is the result. This is the result window. This is the code window. So we will delete all the code and we will write the code one by one. Okay. Total code will be okay. Now, as I told you that first we need to do what? Include. Include means what? Include means import. Which library? IOStream. Why IOStream library? IOStream is a library which will be used to work with what? Input output objects. Okay, next class created with class keyword. Next car. Okay, class name is equal to car. So flower braces. Now within this flower brace, you will write the statements. This semicolon will be used to close this class. Class is closed. Inside of this, class is created. You can mention here class created with the class keyword. Class keyword. This is the class name. Next is what? In our programming, access level of the class. The access level of the class. So access level of the class. What is our access level of the public? Public is the access level of the class. I told you that what is the public access level of the class means all the class data members, means attributes, methods, they can be called outside of the class. Publicly they can be called. Next is what? Once we have declared the class level, if you want to declare any attributes here regarding of the car class, any attributes, any attributes, it is up to you which type of attributes you want to. Suppose car has what? Car has which year? Year, that is commercialized, designed in which year? So year. Okay. So year generally numeric number. So you need to write integer year, one attribute. Okay. This is called one attribute. Next, car one more attribute. Take any attribute, brand. Brand generally, which type of brand? Okay. Which type BMW brand? That is a Renault brand, Maruti Suzuki brand. So brand is always characters. Okay. Text. So string. We need to define here string. Okay. String and that is brand. Okay. One more attribute you have. But I told you that whenever you want to work with strings in C++, we need to include one more library that is what? That is string library. Okay. We need to include if you want to work with strings. Okay. One more attribute. Now, one more attribute. Car has a brand. It has a model. Which model? Any model. Otherwise, it has a color. It has some weight. It has some manufacturing year. This is manufacturing. This is a brand model. Model. Take any model. Okay. Model is also what? Model, if it is string, means which type of model? Suppose Renault is a brand. It has a model driver. Okay. Maruti Suzuki, it has a model. It is a brand, model Attiga. Attiga is a model like that. Okay. So string. So it is also string. Okay. Model. Okay. Now attributes. All are these what? Attributes. Attributes, these are what you know, generally variables. These are what? Generally variables. Attributes. Okay. Three variables. Now, what happened here? Inside of this, we need to create a constructor. Constructor is what? I told you that whenever we were working with constructor, always the constructor name equal to class name. First class name for the car class. Constructor is a special method. So it is a method. So we need to mention that constructor name. Always constructor name equal to what? Class name. What is your class name? This is. And following by parenthesis. Understood that? So this is constructor is created. Constructor is created. But constructor must be passed with parameters. Constructor must be passed with the parameter. Parameters are what? I told you that they are also variables. They are also for corresponding attribute. Here is an attribute, this integer. Brand is an attribute, it is a string. So accordingly, you need to suppose year. So here, that is integer type. Here, suppose X. Okay. Next. For brand, it is a string type. So you need to declare it is a string type Y, comma. Next model. Model is a string type. So here we need to pass parameter as string, different parameter, Z. So three parameters we have passed X, Y, Z. These three parameters equal to your attributes. Okay. This is year parameter attribute for you have mentioned X parameter for this year attribute. It is integer type, same integer type. Next, brand is a attribute. It is string type. So string type parameter. Okay, now you need to equalize. You need to equalize them. Okay. What you need to equalize here? You need to equalize the attributes with the parameters. Attributes are what here? Here, So now year is equal to what? X. Year is equal to X. Next, clothes. Next, brand. Brand is equal to what? Y. Why? Because here brand and next is what? Y. So brand is equal to what? These are called positional arguments. Positional, positional means the positional, these are what? Parameters, positional parameters. What positional parameters? As per respect, these are with respect this attribute integer here. So integer parameter x. Anything you can parameter name, you can keep any your name, my name, XYZ, doesn't matter. Brand is equal to y. Next, equalize the attributes with the parameter. Next, model. Okay, model is equal to z. So now what happened? Now your constructor is created and passed with the parameters. Parameters are nothing but they are the variables. What? X, Y, Z. Now these parameters will be, we need to pass the values for these parameters. For X the value, for Y the value, for Z the value. We will pass the values whenever object is created. Whenever object is created, within that object, we will pass the values as arguments for these parameters. Okay, now come. Oh, this is okay. Now, where is this class? Your class is this. Inside of the class. Okay, class is closed. Inside of the class, this is the method. Okay. Inside of the method is a special type of method. These are parameters. So now here attributes equalized with parameters. Now we need to pass the values for these parameters, and that values will be passed to attributes. So attributes values will be set up. Okay, initial values. Now we have not mentioned any values for this attribute. Year, brand, model. We have not mentioned any values here. Understood that? So now come here. This is the class is closed. How what we need to do? We need to create a main under the main function. Okay. Under this main function. Okay. Now we need to create an object. For what? Class, car class, class name, and object. OBJ car 1. Always I told you that whatever the objects we create, that must be suitable to class. Here, car is a class, so object car 1. Car 1, car 2, car 2, object car 1, object car 2, object car 3. How many objects you want to create? Depend upon yourself. Now this is what? This is an object created. Now here, inside of this, we need to pass arguments. Arguments are what? Arguments are the values passed to the object. What? Year. For year, suppose it is 2025, comma. Next is what? Brand. Which brand? Which brand? That is what? Maruti. Maruti Suzuki. Otherwise, Maruti, simply. Huh? Next, model. Ertiga. Okay. Now, one car object created. Next, one more object for the car class. Object car 2. Okay. Brackets. Because it is a method. Now, close. Now, arguments to be passed. Arguments are what? Values. Same. 2025 model. Okay. Year. 2025 year model Renault, comma, brand. Brand is what? Renault. Brand is what? Renault. Next, model type driver. Driver. Okay. Now, two objects created and two objects are passed with the values. These values are called arguments. So now, whenever your object is called, next is what? At the end of one statement that is very compulsory, I told you the return zero with semicolon. Now, objects are created, but once objects are created, I told you that whenever constructor is created, so constructor is, this is the constructor. This is the constructor is created, okay? Once constructor is created, the method will be that constructor method. Once object is created, here object is created. So this method will be called car method. It is a special method. So method will be called. So whenever it is being called, these values are passed to whom? These parameters. So here parameters are equalized with attributes. So now same that values passed to attributes, sorry, parameters, they will be passed to attributes. Now your attributes will be set up. Initially, here is nothing. So here will be set up. Okay. So now let us take a printout by using of cout is a object mostly used to see the result on the screen. Insertion operator. Now we need to call what? Obj car1. So object car1 dot operator, that is here. Otherwise, first we will call model brand. Brand is what? Brand. Okay. Next. So this is empty. This is for what? Empty. Now insertion operator again. Obj car1 dot brand. Next is what? Model. Okay. Now insertion operator, empty string, so that place will be given. Here again, empty string means to give a space. Okay. Insertion operator, obj car one dot brand model here. Okay. So insertion operator. Okay. Next, backslash n. Backslash n what? For next line character. Close. This is. Okay, if you run this close, you will get the result. Okay. If you are not getting result, error is where, why here you have missed this column. That is very important. This is what compiler based program. C++ is a compiler based. So it will check all the lines at a glance and at what line, which line error is there. At 5 line is error is there. At 5 line error is where part public. It is clearly mentioning here public. This column to be kept. If you do any mistakes, it will help us. One mistake we have corrected. 6th line, 7th line, int year attribute. What happened? Let us see. What happened? String brand. String doesn't name a type. Did you mean stdin? In the 9th line, 7th line, int year. Int year. Here, string index. Index string y string z. Here is equal to x brand y parameters. brand. So we will do one thing. We will call them as first as it is year. First year. Okay. Because year, then brand, next model. Now run this code. First year. So here, what is the problem? Now whatever the values you have passed, no, these are what string. That strings must be kept in double quotation marks. Okay, always strings must be kept in double quotation mark. Okay. Otherwise, you will get the errors. Renault is a string. So you need to keep Renault string in double quotation marks. Triber is a string. String, I told you that it has characters, sequence of characters. Now you run this code. So if you will get the results, still we are getting error. This way, actually, you have created two objects and you have passed the values as arguments while you want to get output object car1 dot year, object car1 dot brand, object car1 dot model. Say we here object car2 dot year, object car2 dot brand, object car2 dot model. Okay. So now this, whenever you run this code, if this code is executed, you will get the result. But still we are getting error. So we need to set this code. Why we are getting this type of errors? These while we are using the strings, no? So it is indicating that string has not been declared. String is mentioning here, string. It is mentioning string. So I told you that, no? What I told you that whenever we are using variables, okay, names for any variables, methods, so we need to use a library. That is what using namespace std. Std is a library which will be used the names whenever we are using the names for any strings, any methods, any variables. Okay, at that moment, see, Maruti is a name. So we are using names for variables. So standard library will be used for uh, naming of variables, methods, objects, object names. So that's why it's getting error. Now run this code. So only due to simple this line of code, we are getting errors. If it is not here, you comment here. So you will get a lengthy error. You will get a lengthy error. So this error is what string. You are using string. Okay, this is brand is what variable. So you are for this brand, I am using name what brand names variables Maruti. So it is a variable name. Ertiga is a model name. So here what I'm doing, I want to use the names for variables. So this standard library error. Okay. Standard error std in. So this line of code is very important using namespace standard. So this standard library will be used for names of while using names for any variables, methods, object, that moment the standard library we need to use. That's why it is giving error. Now code is solved. Very nice. Have a nice day. The class is over now. Okay.